Happy Friday, everyone. We had another key inflation report that came out this morning and was actually slightly cooler than estimated. Although inflation's still high and hotter than last month and still kind of sticky, the personal consumption expenditures index for November came in at 0.1% month over month, which in my opinion is pretty good and better than feared. And then for core PCE, which is minus volatile food and energy, that came in at 2.8%, which is better than estimated. And then the headline year over year number came in at 2.4%, slightly better than estimated. This shows inflation is still high and sticky, but slightly better than estimated, which is good news. This makes me think, like, why was the Federal Reserve so hawkish and uncertain during their press conference on Wednesday? You know, I was thinking they were perhaps a little bit too hawkish due to the uncertainty. They should have said, in my opinion, that they could do more than 2 rate cuts or less than 2, really giving the options open because they don't know. And especially the fact that this data is a little bit lighter than estimated. Why did the Federal Reserve have to be so hawkish on Wednesday's meeting? My theory is that, yes, they're a little bit annoyed that inflation is still sticky for this long. And with the uncertainty with the upcoming Trump administration, with the tariffs, deregulation, and perhaps some deportations and tax cuts, how inflationary that'll be. So they want to see more progress now, which is why I think they did this. They also think, in my opinion, although they don't really monitor the stock market directly and markets directly, I think they were starting to see that there was too much easing in financial conditions. And with some of the hawkish language and a little bit of the ambiguity, I think, I'm not saying necessarily deliberately, but I think they chose their words carefully, Jerome Powell, to cause some uncertainty, to cause the market to draw down, which hopefully, in their opinion, could lower growth and lower inflation. Obviously, we have to see, but I think they were a little bit too hawkish given the upcoming uncertainty, and that's kind of what's seen now in this slightly better than estimated PCE inflation report. But the data is contradictory, of course. We had Q3 GDP numbers, another revision came out at 3.1% compared to 2.8%. That shows that GDP growth is pretty strong, led by a strong consumer. I think consumer spending was up 3.9%. That shows the consumer takes into account about 2/3 of GDP. So on the one hand, we're seeing a strong consumer and inflation sticky. So I don't fully blame the Fed for some of their policy uncertainty, because a lot of it is we do have to wait and see. But you can't be, the Federal Reserve, I think, so as I said in earlier videos earlier this year, I think the Federal Reserve is a little bit too data dependent. And I think they need to be a little bit more strategic. And perhaps you could argue that they're being a little bit more strategic right now with assessing of how Trump's policies would affect the economy and inflation. But I think they should be less data dependent and thinking more long-term and strategic overall. Because if you're too data dependent, the data is noisy. You had inflation slightly better than estimated, but GDP higher. That's noisy data. So you can't be overly data dependent, because if you're too overly data dependent, the data gets noisy, and that's not great either. I think you have to be strategic. And then on some other news, the government shutdown is looming today on Saturday at 12:01. If there's no agreement reached, we had the Republicans try to narrow down the bill from 1,500 pages to 116 pages, eliminating some of Congress's pay raises and payments for new stadiums. And there were some other things that they eliminated too, but also provide still $110 billion in disaster relief. However, 2 Democrats voted for it, and about 3 dozen Republicans voted against this. So obviously this Plan B thing is not going to pass. Now the Republicans and Speaker Johnson are working on a Plan C. There's not that much time ahead. There's a little bit over 12 hours as of this video before the deadline. Let's see what could happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if there is a government shutdown. There's a lot of differences still. And obviously, let's see what happens. But the markets, in my opinion, don't really like, although We should probably be more smart about our government spending, and we obviously should try to at least have tax receipts higher than government spending to narrow our deficit first and then debt. Markets probably won't like the fact of the uncertainty of a agreement not being reached. Although for the long term, it's probably better to cut our spending and get our fiscal house and debt in order. We have $36 trillion in debt, and that's what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's government efficiency program is. They're really highlighting and showcasing on X some of the waste and pork in this bill. And with the benefits right now of social media and artificial intelligence, it could summarize these bills quickly and showcase and advertise some examples of wasteful spending. So we'll see what happens. Well, I mean, that's what Doge is right now. It's not really a formal government position. They're just really utilizing, the bill that's at hand and really using the algorithms on X and AI to summarize it. But yes, there is some pork and waste, but the markets don't like the fact that a agreement has not been reached yet, and the uncertainty with that. Let's see. Hopefully, an agreement gets reached before midnight, but in my opinion, it's likely that unfortunately that probably won't happen. But let's stay tuned.